Welcome back to Timeless Enigma. This time, we dive into the theories behind a case that remains shrouded in mystery to this very day. A story of a serial killer whose name has become legend, a figure who spread terror through the foggy streets of 19th century London, and whose identity has never been revealed. He is none other than Jack the Ripper, the most legendary and terrifying killer in human history. Imagine London in the late 19th century. The air is thick with fog, gas lamps flicker weakly in the dim streets, and footsteps echo through the narrow alleys of Whitechapel. This district was a place of poverty, crime, and despair. The streets were filled with the poor, the unemployed, beggars, and sex workers struggling to survive day by day. And in the midst of this grim setting, a shadow emerged. A mysterious figure who would later be known to the world as Jack the Ripper. He was not just a killer, but a symbol of terror so deep that it left an everlasting scar on criminal history. More than 130 years have passed, yet the same haunting question remains. Who was this man? And why did he commit such brutal acts that shook the world? In 1888, Whitechapel was struck by a series of horrific murders. The victims were women, sex workers living on society's margins. Their bodies were found with their throats cut, internal organs removed, and in some cases, mutilated so savagely they could hardly be recognized. The case quickly caught the attention of the press and the public. The name Jack the Ripper was born from a letter sent to the police, signed with that chilling moniker. From that moment, the legend began. The victims most often referred to as the Canonical Five were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each was discovered in tragic conditions, yet a chilling pattern connected them. Mary Ann Nichols was the first, her body found in Buck's Row with her throat slashed. Annie Chapman followed soon after, her body mutilated with surgical precision, as if done by someone who understood anatomy. Elizabeth Stride was discovered on the same night as Catherine Eddowes, but her injuries were less severe. Her throat was cut, but there were no mutilations. It is believed the killer was interrupted. Catherine Eddowes, however, was not spared. Her body was brutally mutilated, her face horrifically disfigured. And then came Mary Jane Kelly, the final and most tragic victim. She was killed inside her small room at Miller's Court, mutilated so extensively that her remains were nearly unrecognizable. Murder after murder spread terror across London. The police were overwhelmed. Citizens grew fearful and angry. The newspapers turned the killings into a daily spectacle, sensationalizing every detail and amplifying the panic. But the question persisted: who was behind it all? Since then, countless theories have been put forward. Some believe Jack the Ripper was a doctor or surgeon, since the removal of organs seemed to show professional knowledge. Others suggested he might have been a butcher, someone used to sharp knives and blood. There were even theories that he was part of the aristocracy, and that the case had been covered up to protect powerful figures. Immigrants were also blamed, especially Jewish migrants in Whitechapel, fueling waves of anti-Semitism. But none of these theories could be proven. Jack the Ripper remained in the shadows. Over a century later, with the rise of forensic science, investigators tried again to uncover the truth. One of the most striking modern attempts was DNA testing on letters supposedly sent by Jack the Ripper. The most famous is the so-called From Hell letter. In 2014, researchers extracted DNA from the envelope, and the results pointed to a man named Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber living in Whitechapel at the time. He had long been considered a suspect. Yet, the evidence was flawed. The samples were over 100 years old and likely contaminated. Many experts dismissed the results. Another controversial theory accused the famous British painter Walter Sickert. Crime novelist Patricia Cornwell argued that Sickert's dark and disturbing artwork reflected the mind of a killer. She even purchased some of his paintings and linked his DNA to letters signed by Jack the Ripper. But once again, historians rejected the claim as unconvincing. There were also elaborate conspiracy theories involving the Freemasons and the royal family. According to this story, the murders were part of a plot to cover up a scandal involving Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria. The victims, it was said, were silenced to protect the monarchy. The symbols carved into the bodies were interpreted as Masonic signs. It made for a dramatic tale, but hard evidence was absent. Another suspect often mentioned is Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher. He committed suicide in the River Thames shortly after the final murder of Mary Jane Kelly. The timing fueled suspicion, yet no direct evidence connected him to the crimes. Using modern criminology, experts built a psychological profile of the killer. They believe Jack the Ripper was likely a man between 20 and 35, living in or near Whitechapel, someone who knew the area well. He may have been an organized killer, intelligent enough to avoid capture, but carrying deep psychological scars. Why did the murders suddenly stop? Experts speculate that he may have died, left London, or been institutionalized in a mental asylum. But the Ripper's impact went far beyond the killings themselves. His case changed society. The failure of the police to catch him undermined public trust in law enforcement. At the same time, it pushed forward the development of modern investigative methods. Journalism also transformed. The press learned that sensational crime stories sold newspapers like never before. And Jack the Ripper became part of popular culture, appearing in countless books, films, comics, and video games. Today, London still profits from his legend. The Ripper Walk tours remain popular, with tourists eager to relive the fear of Whitechapel's dark alleys. In the 21st century, researchers have tried new approaches. Geographic profiling has been applied to map the crime scenes. Canadian criminologist Kim Rossmo concluded that the Ripper likely lived in a small area near Flower and Dean Street. Linguistic analysis of the letters revealed that many were written by different people, suggesting copycats were trying to mislead investigators. Some even proposed that Jack the Ripper may have been an undocumented migrant who left London after the murders, disappearing without a trace. So why has the case never been solved? There are many reasons. Forensics in 1888 were primitive, no fingerprint databases, no DNA testing, not even detailed crime scene photography. Whitechapel itself was chaotic, filled with hundreds of men who could fit the profile. The flood of fake letters signed Jack the Ripper only confused the investigation further. And of course, more than 130 years have passed. Evidence has been lost, degraded, or destroyed. Today, Jack the Ripper remains a phantom. His true identity may never be known. Yet his name endures, not only as a story of a killer, but as a shadow over human history. So who is Jack the Ripper? Aaron Kosminski, the poor barber? Walter Sickert, the painter? A member of the aristocracy? Or a nameless stranger who vanished into the night? We may never know the truth. But one thing is certain, Jack the Ripper is an eternal mystery, a tale not just of 5 murdered women in Whitechapel, but of fear, fascination, and humanity's obsession with solving the unsolvable. Even now, the shadow of London's darkest killers still lingers.
If you enjoy these fascinating stories, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. See you in the next Untold story.